from our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I am Ahmed Ramadan. One of the world's most renowned debating societies, the Oxford Union in England, has elected Arwa Hanin al-Rais as its first Palestinian president. This and more on today's show. The White House has launched a website that publicly names and ranks media outlets it claims distort coverage of President Donald Trump. The page is titled Misleading, Biased, Exposed. It highlights stories the administration claims misquoted Trump, especially on remarks about Democrats and the military. The Washington Post currently leads the offender leaderboard. CNN, CBS News, the Boston Globe, and The Independent are also listed. The site includes a searchable archive with labels such as bias, malpractice, and left-wing lunacy. One cited report involved the U.S. Coast Guard and hate symbols, later updated after a policy reversal. Another concerns Democrats urging troops not to follow illegal orders, prompting Trump to accuse them of sedition. Legal experts note previous Trump orders that may have crossed legal boundaries. The page appears after years of clashes with journalists and Trump's routine dismissal of coverage critical of him as fake news. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, has resumed payments across the United States. But for many indigenous communities, the recent disruption has left lasting damage. During the federal shutdown, 41 million recipients had no clarity on whether they would receive support for November. Tribal families waited anxiously as the government signaled benefits might stop. Food insecurity is already widespread. Studies show almost half of indigenous Americans struggle to secure enough food each year, compared to roughly 10% of the general population. Tribes rushed to respond. The Blackfeet Nation declared an emergency and slaughtered buffalo to keep households fed. Others killed more bison than planned, slowing efforts to rebuild herds. Commodity food programs helped some reservation residents, but only those enrolled could access them. Many turned to tribal food banks and nonprofits, which spent their own funds to meet rising needs. New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani has asked 179 members of outgoing Mayor Eric Adams' team to resign before he takes office on January 1st. His camp says it is standard for a new mayor to pick fresh personnel for key roles. Deputy Mayor Fabian Levy called it a major mistake, saying many experienced staff are being forced out, most of them women and black employees. Analysts say incoming administrations often replace senior officials to build their own team. More than 70,000 people have applied to work in the new administration. There will be continuity at the New York Police Department, with Commissioner Jessica Tisch staying on. Fire Department Commissioner Robert Tucker will step down on December 19 after voicing policy differences. Mamdani is raising $4 million to fund his transition and has already secured more than $2 million from supporters. More than 200 people of different faiths gathered before sunrise at the University of South Florida, or USF's, Tampa campus for prayers on Tuesday to stand in solidarity with Muslims. The event was organized 1 week after 3 men harassed a group of Muslim students and interrupted their morning prayer, shouting insults and waving bacon. The 3 now face hate crime charges. Students, faculty, and community members filled the outdoor amphitheater before sunrise to support the Muslim students, praying shoulder to shoulder in a show of unity and defiance. Speakers said the response proved the opposite of what the attackers intended. They described a week of wide support, not fear. Campus police watched over the event as the imam led the prayer under the first light of dawn. USF later said it rejects all forms of religious hatred and will uphold free speech without allowing harassment. Students hope this moment leads to more interfaith events and lasting solidarity. Nigeria has reaffirmed its ban on frozen poultry imports from the United States. It was announced recently by the Minister for Livestock Development, Aidi Mukhtar Maiha. The decision strengthens a long-running push to protect local farmers after years of cheap U.S. chicken flooding the market. The ban first came in 2003 after American exporters dumped low-value dark meat into Nigeria at prices local producers could not match. Smuggling continued, so authorities launched Operation Hawk Descent in 2015 to curb illegal shipments through neighboring Benin. Officials say the policy is about economic survival, not sanitary risk. For decades, subsidized U.S. chicken undercut family farms, wiping out small producers and forcing many women out of poultry work. Imports once supplied almost half of Nigeria's chicken demand. Now the tide is turning. Farmers are reviving native Noiler breeds, building community hatcheries, and selling directly to schools and markets. Nigeria calls it food sovereignty. Farmers call it a fight they are finally winning. One of the world's most renowned debating societies, the Oxford Union in England, has elected Arwa Hanin al-Rais as its first Palestinian president. Her win follows a turbulent year at the Union, during which the previous president-elect was removed after an offensive post about conservative American commentator Charlie Kirk, who was killed earlier this year. Al-Rais thanked members for their support and says she wants unity, transparency, and open debate. An academic and activist with the Free Palestine movement, she referenced Gaza and free speech. Al-Rais helped produce a documentary titled Heart of a Protest about demonstrations in London calling for an end to Israel's genocide in Gaza. A French historian says he witnessed convincing evidence that Israeli soldiers backed looters who attacked aid convoys in Gaza. Details coming up after the break. A French historian says he witnessed convincing evidence that Israeli soldiers backed looters who attacked aid convoys in Gaza. Jean-Pierre Filiou spent more than a month in the region and details his account in his book, A Historian in Gaza. He says Israeli drones struck local security teams guarding UN trucks, which cleared the way for gangs to seize food and supplies meant for civilians. Filiou reported 20 of 66 aid trucks were looted during one convoy after Israeli soldiers killed 2 armed guards. He claims the goal was to undermine Hamas and the UN while allowing looters to resell aid or build influence. A UN memo from that period suggested that Israel showed passive or active tolerance of looting. Filiou says Israel's genocide has erased Gaza's social order and could reshape global norms. Arab countries marked the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people by reaffirming support for an independent Palestinian state. The day, observed on November 29 and recognized by the United Nations since 1977, highlights the inalienable rights of Palestinians. These include the right of self-determination, national sovereignty, and the return of refugees displaced in 1948. Kuwait's foreign ministry said its position remains firm. It called for a Palestinian state based on the 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as the capital. It urged the international community to act against Israel's repression and protect holy sites. Egypt echoed this message, calling the day a reminder of moral and political responsibility. Its statement described Palestinian statehood as a historical right backed by international legitimacy. Arab Parliament Speaker Mohammed al-Yammahi warned this year's commemoration comes during severe humanitarian conditions in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. Palestinian officials urged the world to reject silence and uphold justice. Turkish relief groups are still getting food into Gaza. Hundreds of displaced families received aid in Deir al-Balah as border closures continue to limit supplies. Volunteers packed boxes under banners marked Palestine-Gaza Emergency Humanitarian Aid. They raised Turkish and Palestinian flags before loading trucks for delivery. Convoys moved through central Gaza. The food parcels reached shelters where people have been struggling to find basics like bread and clean water. hundreds of families received meals. One displaced Palestinian in Gaza said life had become unbearable, but this support keeps hope alive. Teams continued hand-to-hand distribution across the camp. Relief groups say deliveries will continue even as access remains unpredictable. Palestinian health officials say Israel continues to violate the October 10 ceasefire backed by the United Nations and the United States. New Israeli strikes have killed at least 9 Palestinians in the past 24 hours. The Ministry of Health reports that since the truce began, Israeli assaults have killed at least 356 people and injured more than 900. Most of the victims are women and children. On Monday, fresh Israeli attacks hit Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. Local outlets reported heavy gunfire and artillery in the southeast of the city, targeting areas where displaced families had set up tents. Tanks and military vehicles were seen firing towards civilian zones, raising a new alarm over the collapse of the truce. Palestinian government media office in Gaza documented 591 ceasefire violations, including Israeli soldiers' raids on homes, bombardment of shelters, and direct fire at civilians. Officials say these actions show a deliberate attempt to undermine the agreement and impose collective punishment, calling it a grave breach of the Geneva Conventions. Israel's raids in the occupied West Bank have also escalated. Israeli soldiers detained 11 Palestinians near Ramallah and vandalized dozens of homes. In Beit Lahem, Israel took 44 people into custody before most were released. Israeli raids in Jenin forced several families to evacuate under army orders. Israel's genocide in Gaza has killed at least 70,112 Palestinians and wounded 170,986 others since October 2023. Authorities in Gaza and the UN estimate that over 10,000 people are still missing and believed to be buried under the rubble of buildings destroyed by Israel across the region. Pope Leo XIV is in Lebanon's capital Beirut for a historic 3-day visit. The Lebanese leadership has welcomed him with full state honors. His message is being seen as a sign of hope for a nation struggling through economic and political turmoil. Pope Leo XIV and Lebanon's President Joseph Aoun held a joint press conference at the Babda Presidential Palace on Sunday. The Pope arrived earlier in the day at Rafik Hariri International Airport. He was received by President Aoun, Prime Minister Nawaf Salam, Speaker Nabih Berri, and Cardinal Bashora Boutros Al-Rahi. Crowds lined the street to greet him from the airport to Babda. More than 1,000 journalists are covering the visit. The Pope flew in from Turkey and will meet leaders, civil society, and diplomats during the visit. He will pray at the shrine of St. Charbel in Annaya and meet youth in Berke. On Tuesday, he will visit a hospital, hold a silent prayer at the Beirut blast site, and end the trip with a waterfront mass and a formal farewell at the airport. Pakistan is considering reopening its border with Afghanistan to allow United Nations humanitarian assistance. Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar told reporters in the capital, Islamabad, that he received a formal request from the UN. He said the border was closed last month after clashes along key crossing points. Dar said he has already spoken to the army chief, who signaled support. He added that a final decision will be discussed with Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif, who is currently abroad. An official announcement is expected soon. Earlier this month, Pakistan temporarily reopened the Torkham and Chaman crossings to allow Afghan refugees to move. However, commercial traffic and regular movement remained suspended. Torkham links Pakistan's province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa with Afghanistan's Nangarhar province. Chaman connects the Pakistani province of Balochistan with Afghanistan's Kandahar province in the south. Both have been closed since October 12 following deadly border clashes. Ghana's Interior Minister Mohamed Mubarak Muntaka has warned against limiting Muslim students' rights to pray in some mission schools. He says this could fuel social division if not addressed quickly. He points to Wesley's Girls High School, alleging that Muslim students are stopped from praying there, often resorting to hiding to perform their prayers. Speaking on Joy News, Muntaka called the practice discriminatory and a threat to social cohesion in a multi-faith society. He noted that other schools in Ghana have found workable solutions. Muntaka gave the example of his own daughter who attended their Presbyterian secondary school where Muslims were given a designated prayer space. The minister argued that short prayer breaks takes only minutes and should not be treated as a disciplinary offense. He urged schools to be more accommodating to avoid escalating tensions in the future. Researchers at MIT have built a device that shakes water out of air-absorbing materials in just minutes. Current atmospheric water systems need sunlight and long hours to heat and condense moisture. This new method uses ultrasonic waves instead, pushing out drinkable water without waiting for evaporation. The device works with a sorbent, a sponge-like material that captures humidity from the air. When placed on the ultrasonic platform, the material vibrates at a high frequency and releases stored moisture. Scientists say the process is fast, efficient, up to 45 times quicker than heat-based recovery, and the system could be powered by a small solar cell. It may soon work in repeated cycles through the day, offering a lifeline in desert regions where fresh water is scarce. The study, published in Nature Communications, suggests the technology could help deliver clean water even where no desalination is possible. That's all from our Toronto studios. Thank you for watching Muslim News. We are a community channel dedicated to bringing you stories you can trust. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. You could also comment to let us know what you think of our coverage. You can donate now by visiting muslimnetwork.tv/donate. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV. Salam.